Welcome to Be the Market Expert. And I get this email almost daily from it's called Charted. I think it's like CHRTED maybe. Um, and so Charted is it's really just graphs. Like they actually just put charts up, and I think that you could probably like, Google it and like actually look at all the stuff that they do. It's kind of neat. But one of the ones that came through today was kind of interesting. I was like, you know what? This actually fits in our conversation, I think, at least from a perspective of just like education. And it says the US imports a lot of goods from China, $438.9 billion in 2024, far more than the 143.5 billion worth of goods that China imports from us. Okay, cool. So like first and foremost, it's unevenly yoked, right? Like if we were just looking down and I don't have the exact percentage, um, but we're close to what, like 30, right? Like it's almost, 4-1, right? Let's just go real dirty math. Let's call it 4-1 ratio. Well, okay, cool. So we're looking at that and we see that. And then as we're going through, it says there are so many different kinds of things that we import from China: cell phones, computers, toys, car parts, medicine, and a zillion other items. All right, cool. So that's interesting, right? I think that on a previous conversation that we all had, one of the conversations was really around the iPhone, right? And there there was this article out, and it was something like the iPhone is going to cost, I want to say $10,000, but I feel like it was more. And immediately I started thinking to myself, like, who in their right mind is rushing out and buying a $10,000 iPhone? Like, I'll go back to a flip phone before that happens. And I think that most, I would say sensible people are probably along the same lines. Well, okay, cool. So then I'm looking at this thing. And so this comes across, and I'm like, you know what? We got to look at this. Let's have a conversation around it. So it says, but some good news. We import some of the things that come exclusively from China. And this is some of the stuff that's almost exclusively from China. And look at this. Like, this is interesting. Vacuum flasks and parts. That's astronomical. $1,644 million is what we bring in with vacuum flasks. And so, right, if we're looking at this thing, let's just go through, this Breaking Bad, right? Like we're looking at, so this is what you were envisioning what a vacuum flask looks like. You were on the money. So 96% of all vacuum flasks that come into the United States in the tune of $1,644 million comes from China. Artificial flowers. 96% of all the artificial flowers in the United States, $991 million worth, and related items, which I don't know what that is, like fake pots that go with them, come from China. Portable electric lamps. Children's books. I actually thought that one was fascinating. 93% of all of the children's books are imported from China in the tune of $505 million. Umbrellas, fireworks. So those fireworks that you're getting out of Wyoming, supposedly are coming from China. Uh, Baby carriages and parts, hair accessories, desk accessories, travel sets for personal use. Like this is astronomical. And like I look through some of this and I think like, okay, like there's a lot of plastic here, I guess. Except for the vacuum flask from Breaking Bad, like that's all glass. But as we're looking, like these are big numbers. And what was interesting about this, right, is because this is what happened on Friday. Is this China slapped a retaliatory 34% tariff on most U.S. exports, ratcheting up tensions in the trade war. But has anyone considered where our great nation will get its fake fruits and flowers? And it says, turns out 96% of the ones that we import come from China, and 93% of imported children's coloring books come from China as well. China did invent fireworks, and we can rely on the country for 95% of the colorful explosive we bring in, which could dampen July 4th celebration if the trade war drags on. It's like, well, that's totally a bummer. Like, as we're looking at this, I did hear something the other day. Um, I don't know if this, I can't disclose my source. But I did hear, because I don't know if they're allowed to say it or not, but I did hear the other day that I guess Costco isn't going to be doing um it's going to be doing Christmas as big this year. So like all like the super inexpensive Christmas trees, supposedly most of those won't be coming through. And I thought that was very interesting because, back in my department store days, I used to work for that big orange box that deals in home improvement goods. And for the most part, that stuff was like bought like a year in advance. So I thought that was an interesting, statement that I heard that, they're going to be pulling back because of tariffs and they're not going to be able to afford to give the low prices on all that stuff because I guess most of that exclusively does come out of China. So this is interesting, right? Like as we're thinking about like our ticket item, right? We deal exclusively in the largest ticket item that most Americans will ever purchase in their lifetime. This was interesting. So let me put this out here. Like, I don't know if anyone finds this as interesting as I do, enough to where I had to start off the meeting with it. But if you guys want that report, there it is. Especially because fireworks could be a bummer. And if you were thinking about a career in doing something nefarious in Breaking Bad, it got more expensive. So let's do, let's actually jump to this one first. 49 of the nation's 50 largest metro area housing markets have a weaker year over year home price shift this spring than a year ago. Okay, cool. So we're talking year over year data. We're talking 2023 into 2024, and we're talking 2024 into 2025. That's where we're living. All right, cool. So if you look at this, it's kind of written a little weird. And so the left side is current. The right side is last year. All right. So that's just kind of how you look at this thing. I don't know why it's written this way, right? So you're talking 2020, 23 into 24 is in the blue. And then we got 25 or 24 into 25 is in the pink. Well, let's scroll down because here we are, Denver, Aurora, Lakewood. 1.2% decrease. All right. So we're truly looking at home values, right? So this is what we're looking at, home price shifts. And we're looking at this thing. So I'm sorry, 1.2%. 1.2% is what we have decreased in this area. And so let's just think of this as like RE Colorado for the most part. Where last year this time we did see 2.4%. And what's interesting is we do know historically speaking, homes have increased 4% year over year since the 1990s. And we know that, 2020 broke a lot of stuff. And we did see some astronomical increases in home values outside of that historical trend line that we have been kind of just watching at that 4% level. Well, so if we're looking at this, right, like we see this 1.2 negative percent and then 2.4. And I think Boulder's somewhere on this list, but maybe not. Maybe not. I don't see them the second go around. I thought I did see them, but maybe not. So when we're going through and we're looking at this is year over year, March to March. And yes, we're in April, but yet everything that we need to do for the most part is going to be rear view facing data, especially when we're talking about large amounts of data like this. And so when we're going through and we're thinking about this is where it gets a little bit interesting, right? Because if we have someone and we start talking about like, do people lose money? And if you were on Coffee Talk the other day, or if you follow us on Facebook in that internal group, and I know not everyone gets on Facebook, and I did put it out there because I think that one of the things that came through was doom and gloom, right? There was a local lender that actually forwarded a YouTube influencers information about their insights on the Denver market and how we are in for a huge course correction. And I think what's unfortunate about that is that The course, the like when we're talking about these corrections, I think the corrections, like in the grand scheme of things, yes, we are seeing home prices come down a little bit. And we're seeing the home prices come down a little bit because we have interest rates that are still elevated. Okay, cool. So we have interest rates that are still elevated. You guys all live in one of the most expensive markets in our nation. And when we talk about our average ticket price, or let's talk about median. I think our median price point in the Denver metro right now is something like 599. So let's just round it up to $600,000. The median price point in the Denver metro is $600,000. If you look at average, the average price point's a million. All right, so our average price point's a million. Our median is $600,000, right? We know median's removing all the outliers, making its way into the middle, and average is taking all the cheapest house. And our cheapest house, really, guys, is what, like 600 when we're talking about single family, five something maybe. And then when we go up into the $40 million homes, the 50, right? That's kind of where these numbers skew as drastically as they do. So when we're going through and we're looking at this and we're talking about the cost of money, the cost of money being elevated, you live in one of the most expensive states in the nation. Well, we have an affordability issue at this point, right? We just don't see people making these moves, especially right when we look at this and we're like, oh my goodness, if I'm doing fireworks this year, I'm going to have to save a little bit more money because we import 95% of all of our fireworks from China and the tariffs. So when we're going through and we're looking at it, we see less homes selling. Well, now we couple that with the motivated. There are people that have been waiting on the sidelines, life events have been happening, and now they need to sell their house. All right, so now people need to sell their home. And what does that look like? So we have people that are raising their hands, they need to sell their home. There's more inventory on the market. We're getting more and more inventory. And what do we need to do? And guys, we can see this. You can look on the MLS and I just pick any street address that has more than one listing, and you will see a home, and the next home that has come on the market has almost undercut them, right? For the most part, like every blue moon, you might see someone go over, but that's not necessarily the nature of the game that we are in, right? We know that with substitution, your clients are not going to purchase the most expensive home in the neighborhood, especially if it's apples to apples. If it's 3 bedroom, 2 bath, and the homes are pretty much in the same condition, outside of maybe one's on one side of the street and another's on another side of the street, your client is going to choose the cheaper of the two options. So, okay, cool. So home prices are getting more expensive, houses are sitting on the market, and now we're having more homes hit the market, and now we're seeing some decreasing in values coming through. Guys, this is what we're seeing. Like, this makes sense. And we're not going to see anything until we see rates start coming down. And guys, guess what? Like, in all honesty, this is a good thing. Like, this is good that home values are coming down. Now, here's the issue. The only issue that I see is if this person right here that was on this 2.4%, right? If they were on this 2.4% and they purchased and now they need to sell, I'm saying someone needs to sell today. Last year, they bought it this time last year, and it was 2.4% over what it was the year prior. And now they need to sell it, and now we're down 1.2%. Yes, if you're underwater, there's no real issue as long as you have a job. If you have a job, you're paying your bills, the bank is going to leave you alone. Now, the people that a life event happens to them and now they're being forced to sell, they lose their job, insert whatever here that, and they've lost, and they now have to sell their home and they're losing money. That is an issue. But yet we do know this thing ebbs and flows. All right. We are in a industry where house prices go up, house prices go down. And so when we see information like this, I think this is where we need to be the voice of reason, especially if we go back and we look at some of these people that bought back in the 1990s. I mean, think about it. For anyone that was buying a home in that area, maybe you're a real estate agent back in that area or back in that time, think about what the cost of the Denver area looked like. Like, I remember when I bought my first home in the 2000s, I bought my house for $250,000, right? In like 2010 in 8 triple lot 4 Arvada, $250,000, 4 bedroom, 2 bath, quarter of an acre. And like that home right now, I don't own it anymore. And I kick myself every day because I sold it. That home is worth 700,000 dollars now. And so like think about this. Like if I bought my house back then and then I was forced to sell it today, which I wish that was the case. But here's the thing, like I'm not losing any money. And that's where most people are. Like unless you bought at the height of the market over the last few years, and you're not being forced to sell, you're not losing money. And I think that's what's unfortunate about so many of these news articles is they're like, everyone's losing money, course correction, the markets are crashing, all these things are happening, and it's just simply not the case. Yes, home prices could be going down in value, yet most of our people that have been in homes for the last couple of years, they've made money. And the only time that you lose money is if you have to sell the home. You don't lose money unless you bought high and sell low. Because here's the thing, like, put it in the chat. Like, I'd be very curious. Is anybody leveraging their house? Like, is anybody going through and using their home for a HELOC right now? Is anyone going through and using their home to actually go out and acquire other rental properties or anything else? Because, like, most people aren't. Right? Most Americans are not using their house as a credit card. And so really at the end of the day, you're if you don't have to sell and your home value goes down, well, I know it's not directly correlated, like at least your taxes might go down a little bit, but you only lose on the sell. And so I think that's very important, like as we're looking at this thing. And then what's interesting, we know this, and we talk about this every go around when we start talking about these places that are actually losing money. Right, here's your quadrant, March 2023 to March 2024. So this is year over year, and 2024 to 2025. So this is all this data in a different graph. Yellow is Texas and blue is Florida. So much so to where they went through and they color coded those two states because those are actually the states that are in more of a correction than the rest of us. And we have to think about what happened back then, right? When we were talking about these digital nomads that were able to work from anywhere and they were moving, what was happening? These builders were building and they were building and they were building. And now they have an influx of inventory. And they have this influx of inventory, and now home values are going down because there's so much inventory and there's not enough buyers. This is where we're going to be in a better situation. We didn't have this issue, right? We didn't have a lot of people go out and start building homes. So what we saw instead was this. We actually saw builders come through and only release enough inventory to where they actually had buyers. Think about what the Colorado market looks like. The Colorado market, we don't typically build on spec. You go through, you identify the plot of land that you want from the builder. They let you know the home options that they can actually put on that plot of land. You give them a non-refundable earnest money deposit, and they say, awesome, come back in a year and we'll have a house for you. Like literally, that is our process in Colorado. Yes, I know there's some spec builders, but we actually don't have a lot. Texas and Florida, they had a lot of spec builders. They were just building houses. If we build it, they will come. That's not the Colorado mentality. In Colorado, it was people will identify the plot of dirt that they want. They'll tell us what they want to build. They will give us money. If they fall through, we keep their money and we'll sell it to somebody else. And they moved forward. So we have a lot of resales on the market right now. And again, the resale market, these people aren't going to be losing a lot of money. We're not going to be seeing builders start undercutting everybody, and it won't be as cutthroat as it looks like that it is in Texas and in Florida. So I say that to say this, guys, like we just have to be educated to have these conversations, because if someone starts pointing to Texas or Florida, we know we are not them. We do not have the same builder mentality that they did. We were not the digital nomads. People were actually leaving Colorado because of how expensive it was, and they were actually flooding to places in the Sun Belt to be able to get into a place where it was a little bit more affordable. And now that's why they're in the situation that they're in. Let's go over and let's look at Logan Motoshami. I don't know what's going on. This is a silk title, and they got a donut with eyes. All right. So, as always, Logan Motoshami, the lead analyst for Housing Wire, he says mortgage demand still staying firm, even with elevated rates. All right, so let's go through here. And he starts this thing off by says, if someone had told me that home sales would remain firm this year despite rates ranging from 7.25 to 6.64, I would not have taken that bet. However, aimed all the chaotic economic headlines of 2025 so far, the demand for mortgages is holding steady even with higher rates. All right, cool. So again, the lender from yesterday that posted doom and gloom, housing crash, all kinds of other nonsense. And then we have an economist going through and actually looking at real data and saying, like, no, like sales are still happening. Let's look at purchase application data. Guys, like, this is interesting. So he said, we saw a significant rebound. Guys, we saw week to week declines. And then we saw this bump. Now, here's the thing. This is how I look at this data, right? Like, I'm looking at this, and here's 2024, right? Your bright red line is 2024, and that dark red line, that KW red color, that's 2025. So take a look at this. Like, we started in the basement to start the year, and remember, we have a new administration. We had a lot of threats, a lot of uncertainty. Like, we did not know, and people are like, good God, what's going to happen? Let's just pump the brakes here. And then as we fast forward, right, here we are in February, and we started beating 2024. All right, so this is what I'm looking at. 2024 data. As soon as we got to February, we had more people raise their hands. Your clients, your consumers, your people in your ecosystem that you have relationships were raising their hands, and they were speaking to lenders. And they were saying, Mr. and Mrs. Lender, I am curious what I qualify for to purchase a home. That's all this data is showing. This data is saying these are people that have raised their hand and wanted to know what they qualify for. This isn't saying they went out and bought a house. This isn't saying they are under contract. This isn't saying that they are working with a real estate agent. This is just people that went to see what they qualify for. And then we started seeing this decline. Well, what's interesting about this decline is we were still more people than this time last year that had their hands up in the air. And then it went higher. And then over the last 3 weeks, we started seeing this decline again, but yet still more people raising their hand saying that I'm interested in purchasing a house in 2025 versus last year. And then week over week data, it just shot up again. So guys, what's interesting about this is this. We, with all the headlines that are out there, with these YouTube influencers that are doom and gloom peddling, that are pushing this information with maybe preconceived notions that we're hearing inside of the different offices or the events that we're attending, there is still people saying, can I buy a house this year? So much so to where it actually bounced back and we had even more people. I mean, look at this. Like, we're looking at 2024 versus 2025 right here. This is a pretty big jump. And again, since February, we have had more people every week in 2025 reach out to a lender. And guys, this is the cautionary tale. How many of these people are in your ecosystem that didn't go to you first? How many of these people did you not refer your lender to? And if you didn't refer your lender to them, what lender did they go to, and who's that lender referring them back to? 2025 is about taking massive mind share. We need to be the real estate economists of choice. We need to be delivering facts. we need to be going through and making sure that we understand our people's motivations to be able to assist them in making the largest transaction that most Americans make in their lifetime. We scroll down a little bit further and let's look at pending sales. Pending sales are still higher, right? Like we did dip a little bit. Like you can see a little bit of a dip, but we're still higher than 2024 and 2023. Now, we do want to see this line intersect across 2025, or I'm sorry, against 2022, right? Like we do want to continue to see this. And I actually do believe that we will intersect this line somewhere in June or July, and then we will just live higher. And what's unfortunate is just that the Fed keeps punting and like they're not lowering rates. And okay, but yet we can obviously see that there wasn't a huge drop because of this. Like more people are raising their hands, so we'll continue to monitor this. I actually do predict this will actually go up this month or this week. Next week, when we're looking at this on next Tuesday, this line will have gone up again. We're not going to talk about the 10-year yield. We're not going to talk about the treasury. Let's look at inventory. Inventory, we're still climbing, right? We're seeing more homes hit the market. And I would say that the good majority of these are resales, and that's how it always is, right? There is going to be, since the housing market crash that we had back in the 2000s, the early 2000s, we will always have more resale inventory than we do with new listings, where with new constructions. And so when we're looking at this, yes, we are seeing Texas and Florida go through some stuff because they forgot their rule of we will build it, they will come. That's not the right mentality. And yet this is now motivated people. And this is why we're seeing some prices go down a little bit, is because there's more motivated people listing their homes to sell their house because a life event has happened. And when we go through and we look at this data, that's why the price cuts, right? We're seeing more price cuts, right? This isn't a line where we want to compete and keep going up, like in the grand scheme of things. This isn't the line where we're like, keep going up. And yet that's why, because when we look at this thing, you don't want to be the most expensive house in the neighborhood. And I think that we think about this as like, okay, well, I don't want to have a 5-bedroom home in a 3-bedroom home neighborhood. Yes, you're absolutely correct. And yet what this is saying is if my neighbor's house and my house look the same, I can't be priced higher than them because who's going to choose my house? So what we're seeing, and again, and this will be my homework for everyone, if you have some spare time, is go into the MLS today. However you have it sorted, mine starts in Arvada, and my MLS starts in Arvada. It goes price lowest to highest, and so you see a lot of condos and townhomes. And if you land on one, what you're going to see is you're going to see these homes that are hitting the market that are slightly less than their competitor. And when we're having conversations in the brokerage, same thing. We're hearing agents that have listed their home and for their client, and the next thing you know, a home comes onto the market, goes live, and it's a little bit less money. And that's the strategy of where we are right now, right? So it's about positioning your home in the best light for your clients and your consumers. So your price cut percentage right now as a nation, we're sitting at 36%. And this is not concerning. We know, historically speaking, 1/3 of all homes take a price cut every year. We're just sitting at 36%. So this is not an astronomical number. And yet we do need to understand that the pricing conversation is important when we figure out the motivations of our sellers, and we're figuring out, when they need to be to their destination, where they're moving to, what their timeline looks like. And then we're getting super analytical and we're diving into the numbers to have a conversation with. So here you go. There's your percentage, right? So this is where we are, 37%. We are higher. Makes sense. Jobless claim data, we dropped down again and again. Like this is the war that we're on, right? Like we know that we are in a job loss Fed, and the numbers, they're okay with them, right? It says this. It says we have an important week ahead, which is this week, the week that we're currently in, because this is information from Friday. It says we will receive updates on the outcome of the trade talks with China, and I just showed you some of them, retaliatory, last Friday. Additionally, several Fed Reserve presidents will be speaking. It's also inflation week. We will have housing starts data. As always, jobless claims will be released on Thursday morning, so we've got 2 days left. And so this is the jobless claims. This is this week's key focus on observing how the bond and stock markets react. They say respond, but it's react to trade news. And when we're going through this, it's encouraging that some deal discussions occur, as the world was unprepared for the Godzilla tariffs. We should also monitor whether the purchase application data will continue its positive year-over-year trend. So guys, as we're looking at this and as we're thinking about everything, the Fed isn't moving. I think the Fed's surprising people every time they say, we're going to hold off. We don't know what tariffs are going to do. We're going to hold off. And so as we're watching this information, when we're looking at recessionary data, job loss claims is going to be one of the biggest ones. And what's unfortunate is when the costs are going up and the sales aren't happening, we only have two different levers that we can pull to cut cost. One is leases, right? And for the most part, leases have long contracts that are not fun to unbreak or to break, right? So when you go and you look at a lease, there's typically big financial hits that the company will take. And again, they're not selling anything. They're not going to take those losses. So the second largest thing that someone can actually pull a lever to control their cost are jobs, employment. And so when we look at this, if we start heading into a recession because people aren't spending money because the cost of money is expensive, then we actually start seeing people start firing people. They're no longer in the expanding process and they're in a regression, a recessionary process, and they start firing their employees. When we start firing employees, and the one way they start to stimulate the economy is they start to drop interest rates. We are not team fire employees, fire people in here. That's super anti-American, and that's not what we're rooting for. But yet we do have to keep in mind that has a huge impact on where interest rates are, the cost of money. The cost of money is directly impacted with jobs. And we have a pretty good job market right now. And that's why the Fed isn't pulling any levers to drop rates, because we have a lot of people employed. We also know that we are disproportionately affected, right? We deal in the largest ticketed item that most Americans purchase. At $600,000, that cost of money is a lot different than this artificial flower, right? So when we're talking about a $5 artificial flower versus a $600,000 home, when we're talking about the interest on it, this looks more affordable because I can throw this on my credit card and make monthly payments, where a home I can't. So that's the information that we're looking at. But let's look at Altos, right? Like Altos data, we can see that the median home price of new listings, and at least triple out two, where the market center is located, is going down. Same with the price per square footage. What's interesting though is we can also see that average days on market's ticking up a little bit and median days, but there's still a pretty big swing here, right? It's almost like a month-long swing. So my average days, right? This is saying if I feel like the average in my mind is, if I didn't price the home right, I'm probably going to sit about 69 days on the market. Whereas if I look at median days, this is where I'm removing all the outliers. And if we price our home correctly, we should be sitting about 40 days on market. And so these are the conversations as we're figuring out the motivations of our sellers, that we need to have these conversations like, hey, you know, we need to look around and look at what all the other people in the market, the ones that have been sitting for 100 days, for 150 days, for 40 days, right? Let's look at the condition of their home and let's figure out, does our home look better? And if not, if we don't have a better product, where are we going to compete? And where we're going to be able to compete the best is at price. And so if we price the home correctly, we're going to be sitting closer to 40 days versus 69 days. And these are the conversations through the data that we can pull that we should be having with our people. Price decreases. All right, we're blowing it out of the water, 50%, 50%. Guys, and so again, what's interesting about this average days on market, and people are sitting on the market for 70 days, is that it's not that it sells at the end of 70 days without another thing happening, which is typically this price decrease. So not only did we get to make extra monthly payments for our mortgage, for our utility bills, for maybe the pod that we had to get to store all of our stuff so our home looked presentable, but at the end of all that, we also got to drop our home price. And these are the conversations we need to be having with our people. Price increases, guys, this has been flat. Like, look at this. This is what I'm telling you. A triple out too, there is new communities, right? We know even right by on 52nd, right by that Home Depot, there's a brand new development. And they are not doing phase two, phase three, phase four. Like they're not going through and they're putting a bunch of inventory on the market right now. They're going to come down to a halt. They are not a nonprofit. They are not the March of Dimes. They want as much money as they possibly can get. And so they're going to slow down production on all this stuff to command more money. This is why we're not Texas. We're not Florida. We do not have an influx of new build inventory. We have an influx of resale inventory. And that comes down to more human emotion versus just the stock market. Relisted 4%. So we're seeing some people fall out of contract. And our median rent is $3,100. It gives us a market action score of 44, which we're still in the seller's market. Christina, do you have something? I saw you come off of mute.
No, Charles. Sorry.
Cool. No, you're good. Awesome. And then, guys, let's finish it up with this. Let's look at interest rates. So I did put it on a 1 year, right? And January 1's kind of not anything because we know that the market's not open on the 1st. It's a federal holiday. And so as we look at this, guys, like let's just look at these straight lines, right? So there's 7% and here's 6.25%. For the most part, we've lived in there. I still think that's a fairly decent sized swing over 1 year's worth of data. Like this is the kind of stuff that I'm not truly excited about, especially like here. This probably scared some people, right? Especially as we were just looking at the days on market. Like this scares our sellers, right? If I'm going to list my house and I know that it's taking, 70 days, what did we just see? 70 days on average in a triple lot two. That means I got 2 months worth of time from the time that I put my home on the market until I can potentially sell it. And then once I go under contract, I am locking in my rate on a home that I'm under contract for. What does the rate look like in 70 days? This is kind of what scares a little bit of people off. Now, I'd say it is still pretty flat. Like even if we were looking 1 month, like 1 month feels pretty good to me. And this is the kind of market that we want to see. Like I want to see flat. I don't think that people are necessarily concerned with where rates have kind of halted. I think they're more concerned when we're looking at this thing, the fluctuation. I want to be able to know that if I were to list my house today and it were to sit on the market for a little bit, by the time that I got an offer, that interest rates were somewhere where they were when I started this process. So I'm not having to go into a lesser home for more money because it's already more money, but don't dwarf my spending, right? Don't dwarf my ability to purchase the home that I want to purchase. And so I say this feels good. Like even if we look at like 3 months, like this time period feels a little wonky to me, but we're still pretty flat outside of this. Like this was a pretty big swing. So guys, I would say that, as we're looking, we see purchase application data looking good. It rebounded over last week. We're still seeing rates stay pretty flat, even with all the craziness that's out there. And, as we're looking at this thing, it's probably not the right time to be looking at vacuum flasks to start any other extracurricular activities. And I'm bummed about this. We'll see what the fireworks looks like. But guys, like this is the information that we just need to be having educated conversations with our people because we're no longer in a speed-based market. We've left that. It's in the rear view mirror. We're in a skills-based market. We need to be educated. We need to have these conversations. We need to look at the whole overarching theme of the cost of money to be able to have intelligent conversations with our people to help them make the decisions because that's what they're looking at us for.